Everything worthwhile in life will be uphill. A better marriage, a purposeful career, being intentional at home, having an impact in the community. None of it happens by accident, and none of it happens on a flat, effortless path. But here's the problem. Most of us are exhausted. We're tired of drifting. We're tired of feeling overwhelmed. And so we look for an escape. We choose to numb by scrolling, or the passivity of just getting by, or putting off what we know we should do for the long run, but for something that feels nice in the moment. Well, welcome to the Worthwhile Climb series. Over the next few weeks, we are stopping the slide. We're stopping drifting. We're going to give it up. And we're going to trade the easy escape for the hard, worthwhile work of significance. But we aren't doing it with giant leaps that lead to burnout. We're doing it with consistent small steps, just a tiny 1% change, that will raise the lid on our leadership and ultimately our legacies. It's time to stop drifting. It's time to start climbing. It's time for you to claim your day. This is the Claim Your Day podcast. I'm your host, Nick Mazey. If you're tired of drifting and you're ready to start living intentionally according to your values, you're in the right place, my friend. We're here to help you lead with excellence at home, at work, and in your community so you can live with significance. Let's bridge the gap between who you are today and who you are called to be. Now is the time for you to claim your day. Hello, my friend, and welcome. Welcome to episode 78 of the Claim Your Day podcast. We're in this series, The Worthwhile Climb. Now, this is the second episode in this series, so if you missed the first one, make sure you go back and check it out. But you can find it wherever you're listening to this episode and subscribe so you don't miss any of the ones coming up. Look, we're going to go ahead and get right into it. It is all about, that Tuesday night trap. How you can choose growth over numbing. Because let's face it. Let's put yourself in this scene right now. It's 8:30 at night on a Tuesday. The kids are finally down. The house is starting to get quiet. But you're drained. Now, you had every intention, of working on that side project, reading that leadership book, or even just having a real conversation with your spouse and connecting and just talking. But here's the trap. Instead, you find yourself 45 minutes deep into a doom scroll on social media, or you find yourself more than just a few sips deep into a nice libation, a drink. You tell yourself that you're just decompressing. Maybe you're checking out Netflix, and before you know it, it's been over an hour. And you say you're decompressing. You say, I've earned it, or it's just been so much. I just need to relax. I just need a little bit of me time. I just need to check out for a minute. But you find yourself when you wake up in the morning feeling more behind. Feeling less mentally there, and you're not as sharp. And you're just tired again. See, here's what it is that trap that you found yourself in? See, that's not resting. That's numbing. Numbing really can be the silent killer for your impact that you want to have. So today we're talking about how to win that Tuesday night battle by trading temporary escapes for real replenishment. All right. Now, it's tempting for all of us to escape, especially when you got a lot going on, when you're working hard, when you're there for your family, you're knocking it out at work, you're doing all these things, and it's tough, and it's challenging, and you're tired, exhausted, and all those things, and you just want a little bit of an escape. But listen, you can have the escape, or you can have the impact, but you can't have both. You can have the escape, you can have an impact, but you can't have both. Well, this is the series about the worthwhile climb because everything worthwhile is uphill all the way. So we want to make that climb because it is worth it. So what goes into this escape that seems so nice? Well, we want to numb sometimes because the uphill climb is tough. It is being intentional. It's hard work. Being focused and trying to lead well. These things take effort. In that uphill climb, it feels heavy at the end of the day. And numbing, it's just a defense mechanism because we're trying to escape a little bit from all the hard work, the challenges, that uphill climb. But that numbing, It's just trying to make it a little bit more comfortable. It's trying to ease that discomfort of being tired. But here's the real truth. See, your escapes, those numbings, that you're doing, those escapes, they're not really recharging your battery. They're just draining it a little slower. Numbing, it's kind of like an interest-bearing debt. When you're numbing, you'll have to pay the debt tomorrow, and it's going to be a little bit steeper. That if any of those numbing things that you're just trying to check out and escape, I don't know, half the time that leads to more brain fog and guilt than just being tired. So let's call it what it is. That escape, it's not really me time. If that me time leaves you feeling worse and more behind, more drained, more brain fog in the morning, then it's not really me time. It's not really serving you. So what are you going to do about this? We know, hey, we can't just escape. What are we going to do? How are we going to be intentional? Because, if you're working hard for your family and at work and you're trying to lead well, you're trying to live out your values, you're trying to be intentional, it's going to be a lot of work. It's an uphill climb. So what can you do when you need to take care of yourself? So here's how you can be intentional with your replenishment. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at, is it active or passive rest? So this passive rest, that can be your doom scrolling. That can be when you're just checking out, when you're trying to escape, when you're trying to numb a little bit because of the hard day and tough work. That is just passive. But what about active rest? You hear about this a lot of times in exercise, an active rest day, and it actually creates energy. It allows your body to recharge. It allows you to refill your cup. And the active rest, that could be reading, stretching, journaling. It could be those things where, it could be sitting down and having a nice conversation with your spouse and just checking in and seeing how things are going, getting on a game plan, getting on that same page together. That helps recharge you. Yes, it takes a little bit of work. That's why it's more of an active rest, because you got to put a little bit of effort into it. But when you're intentional with that effort, it pays so many dividends. That's a great way to shifting from that passive escaping to more of that active replenishment rest. All right, what's another way that you can do this? You can set yourself a buffer. So you're not going just from the chaos of this, that, and the family and doing all these things. You hit the couch and you pull out the phone. Oh, no. But create a buffer. When you go from the chaos and then the high productivity and all these things going on, give yourself just a minute or two, maybe 2 minutes of just silence. Now, it seems like it's impossible, when you're busy with life and family and all these things, but you can do 2 minutes. What you got to do, though, is you got to be intentional. It won't magically happen. That margin will not magically happen. You need to make this happen. Now, it might be having a conversation with your spouse saying, hey, I want to take 2 minutes. I'll be back in 2 minutes. I'll set a timer, but just take 2 minutes. It allows your brain to be a little bit of a reset. So you're not just jumping from one thing to the next, and it can help you to make the better choices. So you're not just pulling out your phone or pouring the drink, or just doom scrolling, sitting there on Netflix and just checking out. A little bit of a gap in between. You can do 2 minutes of silence, or even just listening to a nice song before you grab that device can help your mind get on the right place, so you're making better choices. All right, here's another how. So how can you help yourself replenish? This one's kind of neat. Set up a phone bedtime. See, this is giving your phone a bedtime, 30 minutes or an hour before you go to bed. So what it's going to do is it's going to help prevent that escape, but it's also going to help you to be more intentional. It's going to help you to get better rest. And when you're taking these small steps to your own self-discipline, oh my gosh, it pays so many dividends, not just in that, okay, I put my phone away 30 minutes or an hour before I went to sleep. It's not just that. You're showing yourself that you can be disciplined and intentional. So pick any of these, whether if it's the active rest or if it's, creating a little bit of a buffer. Maybe you just get the kids down, and so all those challenges. But before you dive into what's next, just taking a few minutes for yourself. Or, for me, it would be, getting the girls down, and then sometimes there's some dishes and some cleanup. But after that, and it's time for me to be done, I just try to just take a little bit of a gap so I don't go into the doom scrolling. Now, for me, the doom scrolling, I had to cut a little deeper. I had to delete a bunch of social media apps off my phone because it got too much for me. I like to be able to be on social media, but the payoff, the reward, what I was getting out of it, it wasn't enough to cover the costs. It really wasn't. So I deleted a bunch of it. But you don't have to do that necessarily. Just saying what I needed to do for me. Maybe you're stronger or more disciplined than I am. So, guys, just a little quick recap. So we talked about how the escape is in the numbing, and just because the uphill climb is tough, we want to escape and we want to numb that discomfort, but it really doesn't pay off. It really doesn't pay off. It's not recharging our batteries. So what can we do about it? We can actually be intentional with how we replenish, how we create a tiny bit of margin in between some of the chaos and some of the relaxing, so that we can make some good choices with how we want to intentionally relax and replenish. Or maybe it's having a little bit of that separation, so we're not taking our phone to bed with us and scrolling, ruining our sleep, and just not allowing us to rest really well. So why is this important? Why is it so important to not escape? Why is it so important to not numb that discomfort? Well, here's some reasons. First of all, when you're numbing or you're trying to trying to escape a little bit, you're not present. 100% you're not present. If you're sitting on the couch with your spouse and you're both doom scrolling, you might be in the same room, but you're really 1,000 miles away. I'm saying this to you, but I'm really talking to myself. This is something that my wife and I, it wasn't good, but just be honest. We've done this a bunch and trying to get better at it because we might be in the same room, but when we're just scrolling on our phones, we're not really connecting at all. See, and your family doesn't need a perfect version of you; they need one that is present. And really, it can be a lot different. It's interesting. The feeling is so much different if my wife and I, we're sitting on the couch and we're both reading a book. That whole feeling right there is a lot different than if we're both scrolling on social media. I don't know what it is, but it's a lot more replenishing when her and I are just reading next to each other. So you might even just try that. But your family doesn't need you to be perfect. They need you to be present, however that is. Now, just think about this for a second. And here's another reason why it's really important. Is we're talking about that Tuesday night trap, okay? So Tuesday night. If you're listening to this episode when it first comes out, all my episodes come out on Tuesday, so maybe this lands tonight. But imagine you successfully navigated and didn't fall into that Tuesday night trap. And imagine yourself waking up on Wednesday morning with a win under your belt because you owned the evening. You were intentional. You didn't just escape. You didn't try to numb the discomfort of being tired. And instead, you took some time. You had a nice conversation with your wife. You read a book a little bit. Maybe you did just a very few minutes of stretching, and your body feels a little bit better. You're mentally clear because you didn't go to bed scrolling on your phone, and you wake up a little bit more with a little bit more energy. But more than that, more than just the energy, the better rest and the feeling good about it, you're feeling good about being intentional the night before. You're feeling good because you don't have that brain fog. And you can carry that momentum forward. You feel good because you had a little bit of self-discipline the night before, a little bit of being intentional, a little bit of being more present with your family. And you tell yourself, hey, I could do that last night. I can keep doing it. Imagine that. Doesn't that sound awesome? That's your mornings going forward when you choose not to escape the night before. So think about this. It's something that it comes down to the small habits and small behaviors that we do. This is the small steps. I talk about how small steps will take you farther than large leaps. Guys, this is a tiny small step that you can do by being a little bit intentional with how you're trying to wind down in the evening. Not the numbing escape, but that intentional active rest and being present with your family. That's the big payoff. That's the big payoff, and that's the big thing that I want you to think of today. So remember, you can have the escape or you can have the impact, but you can't have them both. Choose growth, my friend, and claim your day. All right. Well, thank you for listening to the Claim Your Day podcast. That's for it for this episode. Remember, you can go over to nickmazy.com and download the Intentional Choice Guide. It's got helps you filter choices through your values, and that might actually help you with your evening routine too, because you'll make some choices based on the values that you have. You're always welcome to come over to Substack. That is, I guess it is social media. It's just different. It's not like Instagram and Facebook and all the other stuff out there. But it's more text-based, or it's a really positive environment. You can come over there, join the conversation. And then also be on the lookout, or I guess listen out for some more exciting news coming up about a way to help you stop drifting and become more intentional, in bite-sized increments with small steps that fit into your schedule and life, while at the same time helping you to make the progress that you want. I'm really trying to put some things together, and it'll be shorter than this podcast episode, but bite-sized, intentional steps you can take to stop that drift and to lead yourself and lead well. All right. Thank you for listening again. Can't wait to talk to you in the next episode. Take care.